Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I am channeling my inner rock star with this crazy hair. You know, it desperately needs to be redone, but I kind of don't care. I kind of love it. Even with all this like gray coming through, I kind of dig it. So again, channeling my inner rock star. Hi guys. For those of you new here, my name is Donna. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you not new, welcome back. Well, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy to have you all here. Today is the next installment in my palette roulette series in which I let an app choose whatever palette I am going to be using for the week, and then I come back here and I talk to you about that palette, and I let the app and choose another palette for me. So here we are. Today's palette is the McGrath Mothership 2 Sublime palette, and I have to be honest, when I saw all of the Pat McGrath palettes, I don't think I have ever had a palette speak to me more than the Sublime palette did. But because of the sheer cost of it, I left it in my loves list. It was there forever. It was there forever before I decided to pull the trigger. And the only reason why I did get it is because I believe I had the Sephora sale in which I had hit Rouge, so I was getting 20% off, and I also had a gift card, so it dropped this palette down to like 40 something dollars for me. So there's that. There's how I ended up with it, and that is why I have it in my possession today and why we are able to talk about it. So if you are interested in hearing my thoughts on the Pat McGrath Mothership 2 Sublime palette, hang tight. Okay guys, I have a lot to say. I have 2 pages of notes on this palette. This is the Pat McGrath Mothership palette 2. This is what the exterior of the package looks like. Nice lacquer box, beautiful. You open it up, these are the shades inside. Why are we not focusing? As I said, I don't think I've ever had a palette speak to me more than this one did. I wanted it so bad, but this palette is $125. With that being said, it does have a 5-star review on the Pat McGrath website with 108 reviews, and it also has a 4.5-star review on the Sephora website with 125 reviews. So it is rather high up there in the review aspect of everything. It has 10 shades, 10 shadows in there. Each pan is 0.47 ounces of product, and it is a rather warm toned palette, right? So it does have 6 Powder Luxe pressed eyeshadows, and these include matte, pearl finishes, and sparkly finishes, and then it has 4 modern hybrid pigmented shadows, which I don't know why one has like a specialty, one type of shadow has a specialty name and the other type does not. But the biggest distinction between those 2 separate kinds of shadows is how the pan is shaped. So not how the pan is shaped, but how the product is shaped in the pan. If it's kind of domed, like this gold one was rather domed in the pan, then it is more of the latter, which is the modern hybrid pigmented formulas. Those come in metallic satin, sheen, iridescent, and holographic. The only distinction really, as I said, is kind of a domed top to the shadow. These shadows perform so good. There's really absolutely no creasing. There are shades in here that are super emollient, and you feel like they are just luxury on your eyeballs, and I feel like that is exactly what Pat McGrath is going for, really, with every single one of her products, right? The shades blend so well. They blend like a dream. For the most part, I didn't have any issues with patchiness on any of them. When I did, it was like a primer issue or an eyeball issue, honestly, or a me issue, because I'm not a makeup artist. I am not a beauty guru. I'm just somebody who absolutely loves makeup, has, you know, taught myself how to do makeup over the last couple years and really enjoys it. So I'm not a professional by any means. So if I was having problems with patchiness, it was a me problem, guaranteed, or a primer problem. I noticed that this palette actually worked better without primer for me than it did with primer. And that included my MAC paint pot. It included like the Urban Decay primer potion. It didn't matter what primer I had on my eyes. This palette actually performed better without it. They all had super amazing longevity, except for Emerald, this green shade here, which in the camera looks very green, but from the side actually kind of has a purple hue to it, and it is very black based, so it kind of wore away in like a black tone. But depending on which way you looked at the eye, it could look purple. As a matter of fact, it is in my eye look today and kind of has a little bit of a purple tone to it. I did put it on the lower lash line so that the green parts stuck out, but in my actual eye look, it kind of has a purple tone to it, which is really weird. All of them lasted approximately 10 to 12 hours on my eye, except for that green shade, which lasted about 8 before I really noticed it starting to kind of dissipate off of my lid. I do have a picture of an eye look that I did with the green shadow at the end of the day. I forgot to get it at the beginning of the day, but I showed it to you at the end of the day, and this is like 10, I want to say 10 hours in, and you can see it kind of dissipating, but it's still very, very vibrant green in tone. Pat McGrath has application instructions on her website on how to apply every single one of these shades. All of them, per her, work well wet or dry, but some of them work better wet and some of them work better dry. So she has that instruction manual basically for her shades on her website. She also has 3 different eye looks in the description of this product that you can that are there for you, so that you can recreate some of the looks that she has done with the palette. I thought that that was really kind of cool. There's not a whole lot of other brands that do that. As a matter of fact, I don't know of any brand that does that. What I will say about this palette is the black. Well, I guess the range of palettes that are in this. The Mothership palettes, this black repeats itself in almost every palette. And this shade here, which is called Astral Ghost Orchid, actually repeats itself in one other palette. So if you get, I think it's Subversive, if you get Subversive, you're only getting 8 additional shades to this one if you also have this palette. Let's get some swatches in here. We'll talk about the colors, the swatches, the shades, and then I will talk to you about the packaging as I'm filtering through some of the photos that I have of me using this palette. So as per usual, I will put the shades up here because I swatched them and I'm a hot mess with swatches. So I'm going to put them up here and we'll talk about them as we go. The first shade here is Skin Show Glow. It is a warm light pink. It's very frosty and has a cream-like texture when you dip into it with your finger. It is really a beautiful, beautiful icy pink tone that I think goes well in the brow bone, in the inner corner. You can lay it down as a base-ish, but because of its frostiness, it's not necessarily the best, like, all over your primer setting shade for your eye. Then you have Copper Toned, which is a medium, like, penny color. I like it's very copper penny, but very brand new copper penny. It's very orangey, pearly, creamy also to the touch. Then you have Iconic, which is a golden brown metallic. It is a one swipe stop shop. This color goes on beautifully in just one swipe. If you blend it, it does blend. It is a good blender, but for the opacity that you might want in an eye look, you can just swipe it on, just one swipe, and you're good to go. One color eye looks, this is perfect for it. The next shade is Bronze 005. This is a golden copper metallic. This is a chunky color. It feels loosely pressed at first glance. It looks like really like moon-esque, so very cratery in the pan. It is applied better wet than dry for sure. You can definitely see it, see the vibrancy and the opacity in it a lot better if it is applied wet. It applies much better also with your finger and when you're pressing it into your skin versus swiping it onto your skin. And it kind of felt wet in the pan, almost like a Super Shock does ish, but not bouncy like a Super Shock is. It's definitely very chunky though. It did have a ton of fallout. It was the first one that I used that really fell out all over my face, and it discouraged me from wanting to use it again because I am typically a base first kind of person, but I just decided that with this palette I need to do my eyes first. That was a challenge for me because I don't typically do my eyes first, but I had to with this palette, and as I go through these you'll learn why a lot of them had fallout and more fallout. The next one is VR Nectar. This is a sheer pinky brownish tone. It's also got kind of a peachy iridescence to it. It's very metallic. It is so pretty, but there are tons of fallout with this shade. Tons of fallout. It's also applied much better wet than it is dry. I would say dry you get so much more fallout than you do when it's wet, but even wet you do have quite a bit of fallout. It was honestly one of my favorite shades in the palette though, and I am wearing it in my eye look today. I wore it quite often. It was an easy shade to use and a pretty shade to use. It would be one of those shades that you could just put on your lid and then put a winged eyeliner on and be perfectly fine. It was beautiful. It is beautiful. And the next shade is Extreme Black. This is the blackest true matte black that I really honestly have ever seen. I think there's one other one that we'll talk about in a minute that I have seen that's roughly the same shade of black, but it is truly a black. It's very velvety to the touch. It feels like touching a super soft blanket. The next one is Dark, which is a deep red brown matte. It could be lighter if you go in with a very light hand. It does look super deep in the palette, but it can be a lighter brown. The black and this shade called Dark they are the only two mattes in the palette, true mattes. The only two true mattes in the palette. And what I say by true matte is there's no sheeniness to them. There's no like glitter in them. A lot of blacks that you get in palettes do have a little bit of glitter to them. This one doesn't at all. There is nothing to them except for their matte pigmentation. It is very buildable, but can be a really nice sheer brown too if you wanted to lay that in as like a transition shade. Even though it looks super dark, it actually can be a very light transition shade if you need it to be. The next one is Rose Dusk. Rose Dusk is a dark rosy mauve color. Again, one of my favorites in the palette. It is in my eye look today. It is pearly and again it's an almost sheer color. You really have to build it to get any kind of payoff. Like I said, it is in my eye look today, but the color copper toned kind of takes it over. You can barely see it. It is in my crease, the deadest part of my crease, the deepest part of my crease it is in, and you can't really see it because copper toned has taken over it. It really has to be built up to have any kind of opacity. It is buildable. It does build well on top of each other, but you really have to work on it. It does have a really nice buttery feel to it. Then we have Blitz Emerald, which is the dark emerald. It does have a black base. It is metallic. This can be a little bit duochromy green to purple. It's really strange, but I loved that about it. As I said earlier, it is in my eye look today. It is on my lower lash line as the green as it is, and then it is kind of like in this area of my eye look, and it looks kind of violet almost, which is kind of interesting. It is another one of those shades that you really want to use your finger to apply and press it into your eyelid instead of swiping it. It doesn't work well swiped. As a matter of fact, as you guys are seeing the swatches, that is one that I really had to press in instead of swipe on, because if you swipe it, it looks horrendous, but it's actually a really pretty color. And another one that also has a ton of fallout. The last shade is the Astral Ghost Orchid color. It is white with kind of a pink purple shift. It is very sheer. There is a ton of fallout. You want to apply it with your finger, and the best bang that you're going to get for your buck with this shadow is putting it over a different shadow so that you see that purple pink pop, so that you get that shift, and so that it transforms whatever color is underneath it. I can place up here, I have another picture of it over the top of the black in the palette, and it is just this gorgeous purple shade. And had I realized that that was possible from the beginning, I would have used it in an eye look, because it's just stunning. So let's talk about this packaging. So if I could find the box that this palette originally came in, I sure would have. I know I have it. This is a little stupid, but I keep the packaging of all of my products, and they're all in boxes in my closet. It's just like a fire hazard is what it has become at this point. But I know I have the box for this. I'm just unsure of which of those boxes it happens to be in, and I don't want to go dig it out. But I can put a picture in here of the exterior packaging of this palette, and it is beautiful. I think the packaging alone spoke to me just as much than the palette did. The packaging is beautiful green with this lady on it and this golden bumblebee, and it reminded me of Silence of the Lambs, and when I was a kid, that was one of my favorite scary movies, right? Hannibal Lecter is an odd duck to me, but fascinating, which is so strange. Inside you have this palette, and this palette is nothing to scoff at. It is a nice lacquer box. This here is like little stamped golden, there's a PM and an L for Pat McGrath Labs, then there's a crown, and then there is an eyeball. So, I mean, that is beautiful in and of itself, and then you turn it around and it's all gold plated. And on the back it says Pat McGrath Labs Mothership, use without caution. Shade throwing and eye ecstasy may result with prolonged use. And then it has the year that it was made in Roman numerals. I mean, it is just sheer luxury. This palette is so heavy, it could probably double as a hammer. As a matter of fact, somebody that I watch on a regular, I don't know if you guys know Georgia Harris. If you don't, you should. She doesn't do makeup content as much anymore. She's kind of on this YouTube hiatus, but I believe she said that she used to use this as a hammer. It really can be doubled as a hammer. A very expensive hammer, but it can be. And then you open it up and you have this wonderful mirror, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but it is beveled. It is a beveled mirror. It is so luxe, right? And then you have your shadows. And these four down here are all like your special shadows, and then these ones up here are just like the regular shadows. What I can say is that this box, as gorgeous, heavy, luxurious as it is, the beveled mirror, the gold plating, it's so rich feeling and luxe. It drives me freaking bonkers because none of the shade names are on it. They all come on this piece of cardboard right here. And you have to hold on to this to know what the shade names are. And they don't fit in the palette. It doesn't fit in the palette. Even, like, that's the closest fit you get. And then the palette doesn't close. So I feel like either make this one of those slight, you know, pieces of like plastic that most companies put into their palettes with the shadow names on it, or put the shadow names on the dang palette. And when you're paying $125 for a palette, like, I don't understand why we can't put the shadow names on the palette. I understand that we don't want it to bite into the luxurious feel of it, but really, then put a piece of plastic in here that tells me what the name of these shadows are, because I think that that is absolutely ridiculous. There are no shadow names anywhere. You have to hold on to a stupid piece of cardboard, and that stupid piece of cardboard doesn't even fit in the palette. I think that that is dumb. Sorry. I also think that it is absolutely ridiculous that this palette and two of the other palettes in the Mothership collection have the same black. Like, put a different color in there. Most people who got, you know, these palettes got the whole collection. I only had one that really spoke to me. However, the newest one, I really want it. And I did look at it, and it does not include the black. It doesn't include any of the same shades as this one, so that makes me happy. So that might end up on my loves list as well. But I need to go on a no-buy, so we'll see if I purchase that. I'm really happy that the newest one doesn't have any duplicates to the palette I have, but I didn't check it against the other palettes, and I think that it's stupid that all of them have the same black in them. I also think that it's stupid that these shadows come with instructions on use. I think that it's neat that Pat McGrath puts instructions on the use of her shadows on her website, but I also think that it's silly. I think that a person should be able to use the shadows that are within the palette to their heart's content any way they desire, and those shadows should work perfectly, especially if you're paying $125 for them. And if there are special instructions to the shadows, send them along with the palettes. Send them along with the palettes. I shouldn't have to go online to figure out how to use my palette. Not that I did, because I can figure out how to use my palette without having to look up how to use the shadow. But I think that, you know, for just Joe Blow, who is looking at this palette and who maybe wants it, they shouldn't have to look it up online. They shouldn't have to figure that out. I love that she put instructions, 3 different looks instructions on her website to help you recreate looks that she herself has done with the palette. I thought that that was genius. I think, is it worth $125? No. The reason why I say that is because it's totally dupable. Most of the shades in there are totally dupable. The only ones that I really couldn't find a whole lot of dupes for are those special shades, but I am certain that somebody out there has found dupes for those shadows, because they're nothing that is spectacular anymore. They're nothing that is outstanding anymore. And I can tell you, like the Skin Show Glow in here, this pink right here, I had an Ulta Beauty color called Pink that was the same exact light to medium frosty pink color that I loved in my brow bone. And I could go get that for, I think it's $10 at Ulta. And it's like 0.12 ounces instead of 0.47. ColourPop board shorts is super, super similar to Iconic, which is this one here. And the Tarte Tarteist Pro palette has a black that very much mimics this black here. So while this is one of the blackest blacks, one of the blackest true black mattes I have ever seen, I also have it in a Tarte palette. I'm sure that they're the same. So do I think that this is worth $125? Here's what I've got to say. I think that I purchased this just as much for the beautiful packaging as I did for the colors that shouted out to me from the rooftops when this palette came out. I didn't pay $125 for it, so I obviously don't think it's worth $125. I do believe that Pat McGrath has some amazing shadows, some great formulas, and I would buy this palette again. With that being said, I would buy it again. I would even probably pay, you know, 60, 80 bucks for it. But I think that $125 for 10 pans of shadow is absolutely insane when they're as dupeable as they are. I love this palette though, and it will not be going anywhere. As a matter of fact, since I purchased it, it has always sat on my vanity. I have this, so my vanity back here used to have this on it, and this is a little envelope holder, honestly, but it is something that has always sat on my vanity with palettes in it, and my Pat McGrath palette, since I purchased it, has been right here. And right behind it is the stupid piece of cardboard that tells me what the shade names are. So there's that. It will always remain a part of my collection. Would I recommend the Pat McGrath Mothership 2 Sublime palette? Yeah. If you're into spending $125 on an eyeshadow palette and it speaks to you, or any of the Mothership palettes speak to you, sure. I do think that they're amazing palettes. I do stand behind, you know, Pat McGrath's brand. I think that everything she comes out with, for the most part, is pretty freaking spectacular. Like I said, the new Mothership palette that just released, I want so bad. But it'll sit on my loves list for a while until I hit a sale or get a gift card or something like that, because I won't spend $125 on it. And that's just how it is. Let's go ahead and pick the palette that I will be using next week. For those of you who are unaware, I do have a Samsung Note 9. I do use the Decide Now app that is in the App Store, and it looks like this. It's just a Wheel of Fortune type app. You put all the palettes or whatever that you wanted to choose from into this app, and then you spin the wheel just by pressing the button there. Alright, I have the Alamar Cosmetics Reina del Caribe palette. I do have a Get Ready With Me collab that I did with a friend of mine using that palette, and I am so excited that it is in my palette roulette this week. So let me grab that real quick. I'll be right back. Alright, this is the Alamar Cosmetics Reina del Caribe palette. This is what the exterior looks like. And this is what the interior looks like. All those beautiful shades in there. The colors just speak so nicely to each other. It's beautiful, and it's a great palette for fall. That is my palette for next week. I'm super excited to use it, and I am super excited to come to you next week and let you know my thoughts on that palette and see if they're still the same. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. I hope that you did enjoy the video. I did have an awful lot to say about Pat McGrath's Sublime palette, so I hope that you learned something new from that. If you have that palette, please let me know what your thoughts are on it down in the comment section, or if you have this one, what are your thoughts on it? I hope that you are enjoying yourself so much with my channel right now in this video that you consider giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here. Whether it's a thumbs up or thumbs down, just rate my video. Let me know how I'm doing out here. Just let me know how you feel about this video. I also hope that you'll consider subscribing to my channel before you leave today. I would really love to have you along for this ride of mine and welcome you into my YouTube family. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and until next time, guys, bye.